On May 21, 1960, Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born in a Milwaukee, Wisconsin hospital to Lionel Dahmer, a chemist, and Joyce Dahmer, a teletype machine instructor. Born to a father of German and Welsh descent and a mother of Norwegian and Irish ancestry, Dahmer grew up in a middle-class household. Outwardly, his family appeared stable, but beneath the surface, it was marred by conflict and tension. Joyce suffered from hypochondria and anxiety, often relying on medication and spending much of her time in bed. Lionel, preoccupied with earning his chemistry doctorate and research, was frequently absent from home. As a result, young Jeffrey grew up with a lack of parental attention and affection, fostering a deep sense of insecurity about family unity. As a toddler, Dahmer was a bright and lively child. However, at the age of 4, after undergoing double hernia surgery, his personality noticeably changed. He became introverted and quiet, avoiding interaction with peers and preferring to spend time alone. During his elementary school years at Hazel Harvey Elementary School in Doylestown, he struggled to connect with classmates and was perceived as an outsider. Teachers noted a sense of abandonment in his reserved demeanor, which cast a shadow over his early childhood. Dahmer's unusual behavior began to emerge at a young age. At 4, he was fascinated by the sound of bones clinking together when he saw his father removing animal bones from beneath their home. He called them fiddlesticks and began collecting animal carcasses from the woods and ditches around the house. He preserved the bones of squirrels, rabbits, and insects in formaldehyde, storing them in a backyard shed, marking the beginning of his pathological obsession. By age 8, in 1966, he learned from his father how to preserve dead animals in formaldehyde. At 10 in 1968, he asked his father what would happen if chicken bones were treated with bleach. Lionel, mistaking this for scientific curiosity, taught him how to safely preserve bones, inadvertently fueling Dahmer's fixation. He dissected roadkill, such as dogs and cats, and displayed their skulls on wooden stakes, once even nailing a dog's head to a tree and claiming to a friend he had found it in the woods as a prank. Entering puberty, Dahmer's inner world grew, increasingly complex. Around age 14, he realized he was homosexual but kept it hidden from his parents and friends due to the conservative family environment and societal stigma. His sexual fantasies evolved beyond mere attraction, developing into an obsession with domination, control, and dissection. He became consumed by a desire to possess the bodies of attractive men, planting the seeds of his criminal motivations. At 16, he fantasized about rendering a male jogger he often saw in his neighborhood unconscious to use him sexually. He waited in the bushes with a baseball bat, but the jogger did not appear that day, thwarting his first attempt at a crime. In 1974, Dahmer enrolled at Revere High School, but school life was a painful experience. He struggled to fit in with peers and increasingly turned to alcohol. By age 15, he was drinking beer and whiskey during the day, smuggling bottles into school hidden in his jacket. When a classmate asked why he was drinking during history class, he shrugged and said, "It's my medicine." He took on the role of class clown, performing Dahmer antics by mimicking epileptic seizures or cerebral palsy, earning money for alcohol from classmates. However, his grades plummeted, and his behavior grew increasingly bizarre. In 1977, his parents' marriage reached a breaking point. Lionel and Joyce separated after constant arguments, and their divorce was finalized in 1978. Joyce moved to Chippewa Falls with Dahmer's younger brother, David, leaving Dahmer with his father in their Bath Township, Ohio home. However, Lionel's time with his new partner, Sherry Jordan, left Dahmer alone at 18. During this period, he became more dependent on alcohol, and his sexual fantasies began to manifest in reality. On June 18, 1978, Dahmer committed his first murder. He lured 18-year-old Stephen Mark Hicks, who was hitchhiking to a rock concert at Chippewa Lake Park, to his home. Hicks, about to enroll at Ohio State University, was traveling to drink with friends after the concert. Dahmer offered to drink together at his house, and Hicks accepted. At the house, they listened to music and drank rum and cola. Dahmer, sexually attracted to Hicks' shirtless appearance, spent hours talking with him. Around 3 a.m., when Hicks attempted to leave, Dahmer was desperate to prevent his departure. Unable to persuade Hicks to stay, Dahmer killed him by striking his head twice with a 4.5 kilograms dumbbell. Hicks lost consciousness, and Dahmer strangled him to death. After masturbating over the body, he moved it to the basement. The next day, he dismembered the corpse, dissolved the flesh in acid, and crushed the bones with a hammer, scattering them in the woods behind the house. Hicks' necklace and knife were thrown into the Cuyahoga River. This incident marked the chilling prelude to Dahmer's serial killing spree. After the murder, Dahmer meticulously erased evidence of the crime. He cleaned the house and disposed of Hicks' belongings. The act left a profound impact on him. He felt a rush of adrenaline and sexual gratification, but was also gripped by guilt and fear. He struggled with the desire to repeat the experience, but his compulsion gradually took control. After his first murder, Dahmer enrolled at Ohio State University in the fall of 1978 to study business administration. However, his alcoholism derailed his college life. His dorm room was littered with empty beer cans and whiskey bottles, and he rarely attended classes. His first semester GPA was a mere 0.45/4.0, and he dropped out after 3 months. Lionel, hoping to address his son's issues, decided to enlist him in the U.S. Army. In January 1979, Dahmer began medical specialist training at Fort Sam Houston, Texas, and in July was assigned as a combat medic to the 2nd Infantry Division in Baumholder, West Germany. Initially, he followed military discipline, but his alcohol issues persisted. He drank heavily in the barracks, clashed with peers, and his performance deteriorated. In March 1981, he was honorably discharged due to alcoholism and returned to the U.S. Upon returning, Dahmer moved to Miami Beach, Florida, seeking a fresh start. He worked at a sandwich shop and lived in a motel but squandered most of his earnings on alcohol. Evicted from the motel, he slept on the beach and drifted aimlessly. In September 1981, he returned to Ohio to live with his father and stepmother, Sherry. His drinking and reckless behavior continued, leading to an arrest in October 1981 for public intoxication and disorderly conduct, resulting in a fine and probation. In December 1981, Dahmer moved to his grandmother Catherine Dahmer's house in West Allis, Wisconsin. Catherine, a devout Christian, warmly welcomed her grandson. Initially, he maintained a semblance of stability, attending church and helping with chores. However, his alcoholism and aberrant behavior persisted. In 1982, he worked as a phlebotomist at the Milwaukee Blood Plasma Center but was fired after 3 months for poor performance. In August 1982, he was arrested at the Wisconsin State Fair Park for drunkenly exposing himself, receiving a $50 fine. In 1985, Dahmer secured a steady job as a night shift mixer at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory. He slept during the day and worked at night, maintaining a relatively structured routine. However, his free time took a darker turn. He frequented Milwaukee's gay bars and bathhouses, seeking sexual partners and indulging his growing need for control. He began secretly administering sedatives, halcyon, to men he met at bars, rendering them unconscious to touch their bodies or engage in sexual acts. These actions satisfied his sexual fantasies while reflecting his desire to dominate others completely. In August 1986, Dahmer was arrested for masturbating in front of 2 12-year-old boys near the Kinnickinnic River. Charged with disorderly conduct, he received 1 year of probation and mandatory counseling. However, counseling failed to change his behavior, and his obsessions deepened. Catherine worried about his late nights and the smell of alcohol but remained unaware of his dark inner world. On November 20, 1987, Dahmer lured his second victim, 24-year-old Stephen Twomey, to the Ambassador Hotel in Milwaukee. Twomey, a white male, met Dahmer at a gay bar and agreed to go to the hotel for drinks. Dahmer spiked Twomey's drink with sedatives, intending to explore his body while he was unconscious. The next morning, Dahmer found Twomey dead with a crushed chest. He claimed no memory of the killing but faced the reality of disposing of the body. Dahmer transported Twomey's body in a suitcase to his grandmother's house. In the basement, he dismembered the corpse, bagged the flesh for disposal, and attempted to preserve the skull with bleach, but it became too brittle and was discarded. This incident revealed the uncontrollable extent of Dahmer's obsession. He felt no guilt over Tommy's death and instead gained confidence in killing and disposing of bodies. He began actively seeking victims, and his crimes became more systematic. In September 1988, Dahmer was evicted from his grandmother's house due to the foul odors and his suspicious behavior. Catherine could no longer tolerate the stench from the basement or his erratic actions. In a prank called Imitate Dahmer, I imitated an epileptic seizure or cerebral palsy and used it to get money for drinks from my classmates. This line is repeated from earlier in the document and seems out of place in this section. I'll assume it's a typo and proceed without including it here. He moved to a one-bedroom apartment on North 24th Street in Milwaukee. However, shortly after, he lured a 13-year-old Laotian boy to his apartment, drugged him with sedatives, and sexually assaulted him. The boy escaped and reported the incident to the police, leading to Dahmer's arrest in January 1989 for second-degree sexual assault. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 years of probation and 1 year in a work-release correctional facility. Through his attorney's appeal, he was allowed to participate in a work-release program starting in March 1989, giving him significant freedom. In May 1990, Dahmer moved to apartment 213 at 924 North 25th Street, the Oxford Apartments, which became the epicenter of his serial killings. The Oxford Apartments, a rundown complex housing low-income residents, provided an environment where noise and odors went largely unnoticed, allowing Dahmer to conceal his crimes. Dahmer's method of victimization was methodical. He targeted young men, primarily minorities, at gay bars such as Club 219 and Phoenix Bar, or shopping malls. He lured them to his apartment with offers of money or drinks, spiking their beverages with sedatives like Halcion or temazepam. Once unconscious, he strangled them, photographed their bodies with a Polaroid camera, and dismembered them. He preserved some body parts, including skulls, and consumed others. His crimes extended beyond murder to necrophilia and cannibalism. Key victims: 1. Raymond Smith, May 1990, a 32-year-old black male. Dahmer lured him to his apartment, drugged and strangled him, then dismembered his body. He painted Smith's skull with spray paint for preservation and stored body parts in the freezer for later consumption. 2. Edward Smith, June 1990, a 27-year-old black male. Dahmer met him at a bar, lured him to his apartment, and dissolved his body in acid. An attempt to preserve the skull failed. 3. Ernest Miller, September 1990, a 22-year-old black male. Dahmer stored Miller's heart, liver, biceps, and thighs in the freezer, consuming them later. He painted and preserved Miller's skull, fulfilling his desire to possess his victims permanently. 4. David Thomas, September 1990, a 23-year-old black male. Dahmer killed him, dissolved his body in acid, and disposed of his belongings. In 1991, Dahmer's killing spree intensified, with victims lured almost weekly. His apartment became filled with body parts and remains. Curtis Strotter, February 1991, a 17-year-old black male. Dahmer preserved his skull and consumed parts of his body. Errol Lindsay, April 1991, a 19-year-old black male. Dahmer attempted to create a compliant state by injecting acid into his brain but failed and killed him. Tony Hughes, May 1991, a 31-year-old deaf black male. Dahmer met him at a bar, lured him to his apartment, and dismembered his body for disposal. Conorak Synthesumphone, May 1991, a 14-year-old Laotian boy. Dahmer injected acid into his brain to create a zombie-like state. Synthesumphone escaped, naked and drugged, to the street, but Dahmer convinced police he was his intoxicated boyfriend, and they returned him to the apartment. After the police left, Dahmer killed him and disposed of his body. This incident sparked significant controversy over the Milwaukee Police Department's negligence. Dahmer processed his victims' bodies in various ways. He bleached or painted skulls to keep his trophies, stored body parts in the freezer, and cooked and consumed hearts, livers, and muscles, claiming he wanted to make them part of me. His apartment reeked of decay, and neighbors complained about the smell, which he dismissed as a broken refrigerator or spoiled meat. Final crime and arrest. On July 22, 1991, Dahmer lured his final victim, 32-year-old black male Tracy Edwards, to his apartment. When Dahmer attempted to handcuff him and brandished a knife, Edwards resisted, fighting off Dahmer and escaping with one handcuff still attached. He flagged down officers Robert Roth and Rolf Mueller on the street for help. The officers accompanied Edwards to Dahmer's apartment to retrieve the handcuff key. Dahmer remained calm, claiming it was a private matter, but Mueller noticed a foul odor and unsettling atmosphere. In the bedroom, he found Polaroid photos depicting dismembered bodies and gruesome scenes. Simultaneously, Roth opened the refrigerator to find a severed human head, prompting Dahmer's immediate arrest. A search of the apartment revealed a 57-gallon drum containing acid-dissolved bodies, body parts in the freezer, and skulls in the closet. Dahmer muttered, "For what I did, I should be dead," as he was apprehended. Trial and death. After his arrest, Dahmer underwent over 60 hours of interrogation, producing a 178-page confession detailing 17 murders. He cooperated fully, providing information to identify his victims. In January 1992, he faced trial in Wisconsin for 15 counts of murder. His defense attorney, Gerald Boyle, argued that Dahmer suffered from necrophilia, schizophrenia, and borderline personality disorder, rendering him insane. The prosecution countered that he was a calculated criminal capable of controlling his actions. The trial garnered national attention, with the courtroom packed with victims' families and media. On February 15, 1992, after 10 hours of deliberation, the jury found Dahmer sane and guilty, sentencing him to 15 consecutive life terms. In May 1992, he was extradited to Ohio, where he received an additional life sentence for Stephen Hicks' murder. Dahmer began his sentence at Columbia Correctional Institution, initially in solitary confinement, but later among the general population. On November 28, 1994, while cleaning the prison gym, Dahmer was attacked by fellow inmate Christopher Scarver with a metal bar. Scarver also attacked another inmate, Jesse Anderson. Dahmer was rushed to the hospital but died from skull fractures and brain hemorrhaging. Scarver claimed, "God told me to kill him," and Dahmer's final words were, "I don't care if I live or die." His death elicited mixed reactions from victims' families. Some felt justice was served, while others regretted he could not fully atone for his crimes. Aftermath and societal lessons. Dahmer's case left a deep scar on Milwaukee's community. Of his 17 victims, 14 were Black, Laotian, or Hispanic, exacerbating racial tensions in the city. The police's failure in the Conorak Synthesum phone incident, where they returned the boy to Dahmer's apartment, was widely criticized as evidence of indifference and bias toward minority communities. 2 officers were suspended, and the Milwaukee Police Department faced pressure to rebuild trust with residents. The Oxford apartments were demolished in November 1992, and the site remains a vacant lot. Dahmer's possessions, knives, drums, Polaroid photos, were destroyed following lawsuits by victims' families and advocacy from civic groups. His brain was briefly preserved for research, but was cremated in May 1990 at Joyce's request. Dahmer's story demands reflection on the dark impulses within humanity and the boundaries of society. While a serial killer, he expressed remorse and guilt, suggesting his actions stemmed from complex mental pathology rather than pure malice. His case exposed issues of mental health, sexual alienation, racial disparities, and police accountability, remaining a pivotal case study in modern serial killer research. Dahmer's crimes are not just a tale of horror, but a tragic warning of how individuals and society can descend into extremes.